Welcome to the new IT, the future of IT. What are we talking about? What are we doing here in this cloudy, okay, it's not cloudy.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. What are we doing in this space today? What are we talking about in the future of IT today?
Does size matter?
Size matter, people.
Right.
We're going to get down to the nitty gritty and understand if size matters. What the heck are we talking about? I know everybody's on their edge of their seats. What are we talking about?
So more than anything else, I think we want to just kind of understand, does the size of a company really matter, or who?
And when you say as opposed to looking for a job,
absolutely, for looking for a job, does size really matter to you? And
you're in IT and you need to, do you want to get that giant company to be a part of and have that, hey, I work for Google, or do you want to look for that fun startup that's, hopefully we'll make it.
Right. Well, and being in Utah, I think we're very privileged to be able to think that a lot of our startups will. We're very entrepreneurial, spirited people. So, yeah, I think a lot do.
So to kick this off, I want to ask from you the standpoint of hiring and stuff. What would you say to a potential person looking for a job? What would you say to them about big company, little company? Which one do you think they should look for?
Well, having said that, the biggest question I would ask them is, do you feel lucky?
Do you feel lucky?
All kidding aside, the biggest thing for them is just understanding their personality. Obviously, startups, smaller companies isn't for everybody. But really understand I try to understand what it is that they want and what it is they're looking for. Most candidates are looking for the Googles, the Facebooks, the Apples, but reality sets in and not everybody's going to get those jobs. So what is your comfort level? What are you willing to accept? Are you willing to go to a 30, 40 person shop if you see opportunity there?
Yeah. Is there? Well, I tell you what. We're gonna do this. We're gonna go into the pros and cons.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Pros and cons of small, big, and then that maybe will give the listener or somebody a different kind of perspective. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea. I love it.
Should we start with small companies? What are the pros and cons of working with a small company?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
So for me,
what do you think?
I think a pros to a smaller company is you're not just a number. Like, you get to understand and you get to realize that you're somewhere where you can be part of something and you're starting to build something, whereas you may not necessarily get that with a larger company.
I've been in startups and I've been a part of some pretty big startups that have gotten lots of funding, and it's cool. You got free sodas in the fridge and everybody's kicked back and we're all excited about building something. There really is something fun about that startup mentality, and it is, everybody knows everybody and we're all excited about what we're creating. And absolutely, if you're into that, but there is that luck piece that you're talking about. Right. I think that's what you were talking about when you were talking
a little
about
bit.
If you feel lucky. What else? What are some other pros?
Who likes to gamble, really? That's really what it boils down to.
Exactly.
But no, there's other things. Like I said, obviously, it seems like there's more laid-back atmosphere, kind of like what you were saying. You have your sodas. Everybody knows each other.
You have a yoga room.
Right.
Maybe.
Well, some of the larger organizations might have it, but you
got
to fight 300, 400 people.
Yeah, exactly.
So, high energy, lots of excitement. You feel like there's lots of innovation.
There's a lot going on. You're working your tail off and you're excited to do it because of what you're creating. There's some real fun involved in that small company, startup company that's really trying to grow something. It's just exciting, and that's definitely a pro that you're a part of some cool, fun thing.
Absolutely. And quite honestly, like, I worked for a digital marketing agency we weren't small. Well, we weren't a startup by no means, but we were about a 200-person company, but everybody knew everybody. But that was the culture that they bred. That was the way they wanted it, and it was awesome. And there are still friends that was probably close to 7 or 8 years ago, but there's still people that I know there that I'm really good friends with because of that culture, because of that experiences, and because it is a nice environment to be in.
There's something to say for that.
Absolutely.
That's good, important stuff. I think the other thing is a lot of times they're innovative. They it's about the pivot. They're trying to find their way in the sea and find their niche and find their place. So they're really trying to. If you're somebody that really wants a challenge and you're excited about getting in there and trying to figure out where the whole company fits, in a lot of ways that's a pro for a lot of people. It's exciting to them. Some people it might be actually a con, but for me, I get excited about that kind of stuff.
Well, from a recruitment standpoint, I like it because when you have to figure things out like that, when you're on the fly and it's one of those like, we don't do those capabilities, but guess what? Hey, now all of a sudden we do. Yeah. It's you get to learn and you get to experiment and you get to try things that you may have not gotten to try before. So that helps your knowledge and your skill set in the long run.
Yeah. There's also, I love it.
And like I said, I mean, that ties into, like I said, just the learning aspect of it. I mean, you get that experience that you normally wouldn't. So if you're working for like a Google or an Apple or Facebook, they're probably set in their processes to say, I just need you to execute this and that's it. And there's not much deviation. So it's going to come for you to be able to grow yourself. It's going to take you to do things outside of that.
I think you're also not, you're more of it's a family feel type of, we're all in this together.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's interesting because I've been a part of companies where that's where it started out, and then we got some success, and the company grew, and it got bigger, and it was so interesting how that starts to shift. You don't know who everybody is anymore,
right?
And then people get a little bit more becoming a number, and then layoffs happen. At 15% of the company needs to be let go, and there's no. It's just you know what I mean.
You never know. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting, but when you're in that smaller company, it's just this family connection, and you feel more.
You feel that way.
You really have some investment in that kind of company.
Absolutely, and I 100% agree with that. I mean, that's where I'm not for startups per se. That's not my forte, but I like that, 30, 40 person shop. They're growing, they're finding their niche, they're continuing to grow. That's where you get to see that excitement of placing people with them, because they know that they're in demand and they know that they're trying to figure it out any way possible.
Yeah, I love it. Last pro, more learning opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of covered that a little bit already, but I mean, in a smaller company, like I was mentioning, I mean, you may have your sales team go out and pitch, hey, we're doing Java, but this client asked us to learn PHP to migrate their site over or something. If you don't have that skill set, or if they don't have it in-house, you're going to have to learn it, because that's reality. That's just what you're going to have to do.
And to some people, that's a pro. It's exciting to be able to learn new stuff and have that opportunity to put a new piece of learning into your wheelhouse.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's nice. That's a great thing.
I know. Cool. So, I mean, from that standpoint, I mean, you got to educate yourself while getting paid to do your job.
Yeah, I love it.
Right.
Everything about startups and small businesses excite me. I love it's where I've been. It's where I like to be. I've been in bigger corporations and companies, and it's just not as fun and engaging for me and exciting to be a part of that growth and that connectivity. I like that camaraderie. I like the culture that creates. I personally love that. But what are some cons then? What are some cons for small business?
Oh, where to begin?
So there are.
Right? There are. I mean,
the big one.
The big one, I mean, personally, I would think that it's risky. I mean, if you're starting out, you're a 5-10 person dev shop or something. If you don't have your legs under you,
you're rolling the dice.
Rolling the dice. So, I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty with that. So, You never know. I mean, that's where I says.
And a
do you feel
lot
lucky?
of them fail.
Right.
A lot of them fail. Yeah, it's risky, guys. Let's face it.
It is. But I mean, at that same point, I mean, if you can see a vision and you can understand where this company is going, and if you've bought into it,
And do your research and see where
Absolutely.
they're where they're going and kind of what's happened. But a lot of times you can tell when something's stagnating or
absolutely.
moving forward in full blast.
And in that same vein, don't be afraid to do some Google reviews or Glassdoor reviews. Companies, if they're buzzing, they're going to have that buzz about them, and people are going to be talking about them, and you get it firsthand from the employees that are there. So utilize those tools and understand if it's a right fit for you.
But there still is some uncertainty.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's uncertainty in everything. There's uncertainty in bigger companies too.
True. I mean, you can get laid off for no
Exactly.
reason. Absolutely.
So
Well, yeah, whatever that reason.
right,
There may be some kind of reason, but it doesn't have to be very justified.
exactly.
I've seen really good people get let go because they just needed to shorten. They just needed to get rid of staff. That was how they were fixing some financial issues, and it's pathetic. But anyway, you
And
get
that
that
happens.
you get that in big and small. You get that all over.
Absolutely.
So that's just a part of it.
Right. Another thing that I would think is a con is just more, sometimes you do have to be a jack of all trades. Sometimes you do have to learn different
And
technologies.
that can be
So,
stressful.
yeah, I mean, from that standpoint, it could be very stressful to you if that's not something you're built to do.
And sometimes they do kind of pile it on and like, you know what? We don't have the revenue to hire you an assistant.
Right.
or what have you, or another person that does your job. I have been in that situation too, where it's just like, oh, I am wearing 10 different hats, and it's a little overwhelming. It gets a little
It
tough.
can be. Yeah. And that's where, like, if you don't have thick skin, or if you don't like high stress environments, then maybe that's not for you.
Yeah, definitely something to think about when you're talking about
Absolutely.
smaller companies. Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing would be like the structure, management structure can kind of sometimes be risky. I mean,
They're trying to figure things out.
exactly. So maybe they're unsure of their direction, how they want to pivot, where they want to go. So
Yeah, that can be frustrating when a company seems like it's running seat of its pants.
right.
And a lot of the small companies and startups and stuff, they do that. They do run by the seat of their pants, and it takes them a little while to grow. And sometimes that helps, and they grow, and sometimes they fail because of it. And
Yep.
so, yeah, that's a big con. That's
It
a
is.
big con that their structure can be kind of.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. I mean,
Floaty.
if it's not structured properly, you may be in for a disaster, or if it is, then you may be in for a windfall of success.
Yeah, I think also sometimes they're in constant pivot mode.
I think so.
They're trying to find their way, and hey, this works. And some people would say maybe that's a pro because it's fun to be able
More
to do that.
agile.
But yeah, but
More
in
nimble.
a lot of ways, that's hard to sit down and understand your place in a place that's all over there.
Yeah.
It's going all over. And
Absolutely, and I can see where it can be really challenging. It can make you really question: is this right for me? Is this where I should be? So I get it.
I think, and last kind of con for small businesses is their budget. They're constantly trying to streamline things, and sometimes you've got to fight to just get some small, in technology, let's face it, you got to spend some money on it, and sometimes they don't have the budgets that the bigger companies do. But
Absolutely. I mean, depending on where you really want to go, I mean, that can be a big one as well, because that smaller constraint can really hurt you.
yeah,
So, I mean, understanding if you're okay with that, but at the same point, I kind of look at that as you may not get the Ferrari right offhand. Maybe you have to drive a station wagon just to get there, but eventually,
Ooh,
if it's
wow.
right, you will.
went to station wagon. Interesting.
Right.
But maybe it's a Audi station wagon. That
Yeah,
would be
yeah,
okay.
you could do that. Depending on how many kids you got.
Yeah. So I mean, I think I get excited about the small companies and the startups. That excites me. That's what I love to be a part of. I could never see myself in the big company. But let's talk about The big companies.
Yeah.
What are the pros? What do we got for pros when it comes to working for the big dogs?
Absolutely. So in that same thought process, it is safe. You don't have to worry about, hey, am I getting paid today? Or hey, is this really going to work out? Or man, now I have to do 10 different jobs.
Yeah, I was in one small company where payroll, we found out, was paid by the founders' credit cards.
Ooh, that's tough.
You just, yeah. Big companies have that revenue. Usually you'll get paid.
Right. You don't ever have to worry about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's with that said, I mean, there's less uncertainty. I mean, you don't have to worry about it. Like we said, consistent paychecks, bigger budgets. So let's say you do get that Ferrari. Well, now you get to go and play with it. Now you get to go figure out all the bells and whistles.
Yeah. Bigger budgets for sure. They know that to make things move, you do kind of have to throw some money at stuff.
You do.
And big companies understand that. Maybe in some ways they do waste money, but I think in the long run, to keep the machine running, I mean, very seldom does it put them out, but sometimes it'll put them out of business if they're very. Anyway,
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm going with that.
No, I know where
Yeah,
you're
they have
going.
some money. They have some money to spend, and they know that they need to.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
and some of those larger organizations, they allot a certain amount each month or each year to say, okay, this is growth, or this is tech, this is what we need to invest in, and they take that money and then they get the things that they need for their staff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other big pro is they have a real usually a very well structured
Absolutely.
setup. They're very well structured.
Absolutely. I mean,
And it's
Yes.
defined. It's what
It's very defined.
They know you've got a spot here, and this is what you do. And everybody has a spot. Most big companies, they had to. The only way to
Yeah.
scale is to do that. So,
exactly. And there is something to be said for that, but in that same vein, I'm going to throw out that sometimes that can be a little bit mundane, and you're just kind of very repetitive and doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah, and I think we're going to talk about then the
Right.
cons.
Oh,
aren't we?
sorry, I jumped ahead a little bit. Sorry.
Because I'm like, yeah, that's exactly.
Not sure if we had if I had thought about that one, but yeah, there it was.
I think it's something like it anyway.
Right.
Set schedule.
Yeah.
You know what you're going to do. Usually not working those 80 hours a week like you would at a
Right.
small company, doing every hat and everything.
Right.
You usually you leave your job and you're done for the day, and
Right.
you're kind of good. You can kick back and
No stress
No stress
involved.
and
No worried about did I do this? Did I do that?
some people that's a big deal for them.
Right. You get banker's hours. You get your 9
Yeah.
to 5. You do what you do, and then you go home. So, yeah, I mean, I can understand how that could be, a big pro for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And with that too, I mean, working for a large organization. Let's say you work for Facebook or Google or Apple. You get a name drop. You get to say, yeah, I work for Google.
And that's cool. I mean, let's
Yeah.
face it, it's kind of cool. And I would definitely call that a pro, especially if in the future you're looking for a job.
Absolutely.
When people know you've been hired by the big ones, then
Kind of gives you more value.
Yeah,
it
it does. It makes you seem more, as long as you weren't laid off or
Right.
let
Or
go or
did anything you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, exactly. But for the most part, I think that actually is a pretty big con for your
Small.
what
For
your
the small.
well for your resume, or
Oh, okay, I see
for
where you're
your
going,
for your what is the legitimacy?
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm going with that.
For your stature, so to
yeah,
speak.
yeah.
That's where you're going with it.
Yeah, you got status for
Yeah.
working there. Exactly. So what are some of the cons there with the big businesses? I think you just said it.
I did. I kind of spoiled it a little bit too early,
The
but
big one is
routine.
it's freaking boring.
Yeah, I mean,
Let's face it. You're going to be sit in a lane. You're going to have a thing to do. You're going to do that thing all day long. The chances of getting out of that box. Now, I will say some of the big companies are doing some innovation things. I mean, the big thing that Google does that people talk about, that they make you take 20% of your time to go work on whatever you want. and do whatever you want. I mean, there are big companies out there that are doing some things to help with that, but for the most part,
Yeah, I mean,
they're freaking boring.
yeah,
You've got
exactly.
a thing to do.
I mean, corporate America is not all the companies are like Google or Apple or any of those big players, so they're not going to do it as much. But yeah, I mean, they're still going to have that
And
routine.
again, some people like that. They'll like
Yeah.
the boring. They want the I know I'm going to work, I'm doing my thing, and I'm leaving.
Get a solid paycheck.
Yep.
You know, you get to go home and have family time. You get to interact with family.
Yep.
So I get it. I mean, there's a lot of draws to having that. So yeah.
Yeah.
But having said that, that can also make a lot of people go crazy and make it be boring. So it really just depends on your personality.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's face it, you're just another number.
Right.
You're just there is no family feeling there. Not
No.
usually. Not in a big corporation. It just
You may have a little bit with your team.
maybe you get a really good boss or manager or
Right.
something that really understands connection with his or her employees, but
But at the end of the day,
But yeah,
that's
for
not coming from corporate.
for the most part, you're a number. Let's face it.
You are.
You're just who you are, and if that's not, again, if you're excited about being a part of something that you want to help create, then it's a smaller businesses for you.
Absolutely. Well, and like you said, I mean, because of that, I mean, it sometimes larger companies can sometimes make it harder to grow your career because you're set in a set job,
Yeah.
and that's all you do. So you don't get the opportunities that a startup would to understand or learn new technologies.
Go different
Yeah.
directions, and that's just not how
You're
it
here,
works.
you do
And,
this, you do this, you do this,
Yeah.
and then you're done.
Yeah, yeah, and
So-
and some big companies will kind of work on that a little bit, but for the most part, that's what we're talking about. You've been hired to do this job, and that's what you do. Maybe there's internal positions to move around in, but it's just not the same as a
Exactly.
small company. It's much more. This is where you're at, and you can't be forgotten. I know guys
Absolutely.
that have done their thing for years, and some of them like that.
Yeah.
They like doing their job and coming home. If that's
Yeah.
your personality, then maybe that's not a con.
More power to you if it
Yeah.
is, But I mean, like I said, I mean, with having said that, I mean, sometimes those large companies do have layoffs, and maybe
Big layoffs.
not just small. I mean, you're
Oh.
talking a couple thousand people, so I mean, maybe that happens. I mean, you never know.
And because sometimes big companies they're at the mercy of shareholders usually, and if things happen, one really quick and easy way to gain a lot of revenue or profits or whatever is to let go of people.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds crass, and that is a part of a big company that they do what they got to do, and you are again just a number.
Yeah.
So if they need to get rid of 15% of employees, it just gets done.
Absolutely.
And sometimes there's no rhyme or reason to it. Well, a little bit, but for the most
Yeah.
part, I've seen really, really good people get let
Let
go
go.
because there was somebody else doing that job, and they just decided to let one person
Right.
go, whatever. And at big companies, that is something to think about.
Absolutely. I mean,
Because
You never
we
know.
talked as a con that it's consistent and all this stuff, and it is for the most part, but there's still, especially in this world, the world of working for a company for 30 years,
those
this
days
is
are
not,
long
yeah,
gone.
it's just not, that's not the world we live in now.
no, not at all.
And so,
I think the
be ready
average
for
10
that.
years, anywhere from 3 to 5 years. So I mean, it's people are switching jobs more and more. So being complacent is really important to people. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's a con for a big company because if you're set in your processes so much, you may be missing out on good talent or not utilizing them to the best of the company's abilities
yeah.
because you hired them to do something completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the last, or I think one of the bigger cons is you just don't have a say. You're just
Absolutely.
You don't really have the input. They try sometimes with suggestion boxes or some dumb crap like that.
Right.
That you're like, nobody reads it, nobody cares. At least that's how it feels. They may, but for the most part, you don't really have much say in anything that happens.
You really don't, and that's the sad part. Is like, I mean, we try, and I think it's just they do a fantastic job of trying, but when you're that big, there's so much that things just can't get done as if they were in a smaller company.
Yeah. So I think if we ask that question that I asked in the beginning, what would you say to your clients, a small business or a big business? It depends on the client, or it depends not the
On
client,
the
the potential candidate.
Yeah, I mean,
Some of these pros are really exciting, and even some of the cons for some people can be exciting, and they
Absolutely.
want that, and vice versa. So I think this is kind of, do you sit with the candidate and you go, you know, this company does this, just so you know, they're this size company. Do you do that stuff?
So what I try to do is I learn about my candidates, and I want to make sure that I'm finding them the best possible job that they're willing to take. So having said that, I get to learn about their personalities. I get to understand and kind of really get to know them, to understand what's going to be best for them. I'm not going to just put you in a job just for the sake of putting you in a job. I'm going to make sure that I find something that you're going to be comfortable with and something you can see yourself there for the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Recruiting is a very performance-based industry, and if you're unhappy, then guess what? You're going to tell your friends you're unhappy.
Yeah.
Then you're going to be less likely to use a recruiter.
Right.
But if you have a great experience, and as a recruiter I'm continuing to follow up with you, I can then help. You can then help me by having your great experience, and then that could be a token, and then you're going to tell your friends, hey, you know what? You want to find a new job here? So and so can help you.
Yeah. Wow, this is cool. I think this was a good episode.
Absolutely.
I'm glad we did this. So does size matter? Well, it matters depending on what you want.
Yep. To the individual.
It's up to you. So kind of think about those things when you're thinking about that.
Absolutely.
Cool. Any last words?
Nope.
I think we kind of hashed this one out pretty good. All right, folks. So. Thank you for tuning in to the New IT. We will see you next time for the New IT.